So I'm just going to preface this video by saying that I am not an expert woodworker, and this is really only my second serious project I've done. And by serious, I just mean something more than a 2x4 workbench. So this project was a little bit different because it was a Christmas present. After I finished up the design, I only had about a week to build it, so I really had to use my time wisely. Which is honestly pretty silly to say because it's also the first project I decided to document from start to finish. But that is neither here nor there. Let's just get started. So a few weeks before Christmas, my girlfriend showed me this shelf that basically displays all of your trinkets and knickknacks. But I didn't want to just buy it, so I started to think about how I could make one. And it honestly didn't seem too bad. I'm working in my grandpa's old shop for this project, which has been absolutely amazing. All of my past woodworking projects have been done in my parents' basement with really poor lighting and very limited tools. So this has been quite the upgrade. One thing I've always wanted to do is kerf bending. Basically, that's when you make a series of small cuts in a board that don't go completely through, and you're able to bend that board along the cuts. So about 2 days later, I was reading through this short PDF/book on the Bauhaus Design School, written in the late 1930s, I believe. And it was one of the most inspiring things I've ever read. If you're into design, I would highly recommend checking it out. But in the book, it discusses how the creators of the school had concerns with the soullessness of modern manufacturing. So their aim was to reunite fine art with functional design. Modern education today often focuses on narrower fields of study. For example, if you pursue engineering, you become an engineer with little emphasis on other areas. In contrast, the Bauhaus movement believed that fostering creativity required a more well-rounded education, one that balanced both technical skills and artistic development. And that was really cool to me because with a lot of my projects, that's exactly what I do. I like to have the technical approach where I do more engineering stuff, and then I also do like the creative side where you get into the artistic stuff.
Perfect. Well.
But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. The one thing that really caught my attention while I was looking through this was the dark and light contrast they used in their furniture and architecture. And that's kind of when I got the last piece of the puzzle for this design sorted out. Like I said before, I only had about a week to build this because I wanted to give it to my girlfriend before we went out of town for the holidays. I spent a little bit of extra time in SolidWorks for this one and made sure I had a solid game plan, as well as a few drawings to reference before I got any lumber. The drawings I made ended up being somewhat useless, although I will say it was helpful to have a flat pattern for the frame pieces. Basically, this just showed each cut, and between the dados and the kerfs, there was about 54 cuts on just the two frame boards. So the drawings were somewhat useful for that, but I didn't use them for anything else. This is my first attempt at kerf bending, And everything fit together really well on the first try, so I was pretty psyched about that. I'm sure I'm not the only one who dislikes the whole sanding process of a woodworking project, but man, I really dislike it. It's extremely time consuming. When you design and make something yourself, you're going to find imperfections and things you wish you would have thought about beforehand. I think this is really natural. Most of the time, these things are not deal breakers, and for me, it's usually best if I kind of just see it through, at least up to a point where I can decide if I need to remake something or if I can improvise a little. Because the main goal is to create something, and as long as the initial function of the thing you're making stays the same, I don't see an issue with a little bit of improv. But the roadblock I had with this project was the divider pieces. And I actually thought they would be the easy part, which is typically how things go. But what happened is I didn't really have the time to think about making a jig to repeatedly cut the slots. So I relied on my measurements and pencil marks, and this worked fine. But after making about 5 of them, I realized that another 5 would basically leave me with a puzzle that's borderline unsolvable.
Perfect.
So I finished the first 5 dividers, and then I came up with a different plan for the last 5. Instead of cutting multiple slots in each piece, I just made 5 solid pieces and added 5 dados to the existing dividers. This way the solid pieces just slid in between the dados on the frame and the dividers. And it honestly worked out great. All it did was reduce the number of individual pockets from 20 to 16. And since this is literally just a shelf for random trinkets and that number is completely arbitrary, it did not matter at all. So this seemed like a pretty big issue at the time, and it felt overwhelming at first, but I was able to pivot fairly quickly and come up with a solid solution that really didn't change the function of this piece at all. So I didn't technically finish it in the time frame I wanted, but I was still able to show my girlfriend a fairly completed version of it before we went out of town. I think it came out great, even with the slight change to the design. Like I said at the start of this video, this is really only my second serious woodworking project. I'm not 100% sure what's next, but I have a lot of ideas, and I'm sure I'll figure it out pretty quick. Anyways, if you made it this far, thank you for watching, and please like this video and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.